St. Paul will be revamped and made into living quarters. Construction set to begin sometime in June. Part of Gino Palucci's pizza operation.
Yes, you will.
And you'll love Levitt's big spring sale with these bedroom pieces. $88 buys bachelor chest, hutch top, writing table, student desk, chair, and mirror. Or pick this two-piece loft bed, only $268. Wardrobe chest, only $138.
You'll love it at Levitt's.
Meet Bob the baker and his fiancée, Edith. Bob wants to bake Edith the most beautiful wedding cake using only the finest ingredients, but that can be expensive. Edith says that the man she marries will have to be very cost-conscious. Bob insists on the finest quality. Edith insists on low prices. Today, Bob and Edith were happily married because Bob proved that by shopping at Rainbow Foods, you can have your cake and Edith too.
Serving and informing the Twin Cities for 4 decades. This is WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And now, Dave Moore, Pat Miles, Mike Fairborn, and Ralph John Fritz bring you Channel 4's 6 p.m. report.
Good evening, everyone. Governor Rudy Perpich today revealed details of a $1.3 billion incentive plan to convince General Motors to build its new small car plant in Minnesota.
Well, the plan has been one of the very best-kept secrets in the state until this afternoon when the governor called a press conference to announce to the state and what it has offered. Pat Kessler reports live from the Capitol. Pat.
Don, like other governors from other states, Rudy Perpich carried Minnesota's Saturn proposal to Detroit. But fearing that some other states may steal some of Minnesota's ideas, the governors kept the proposal secret until this afternoon. Less than an hour ago, Perpich outlined the Saturn proposal. For 30 years, it says Saturn would pay no major taxes. The state would forgive the sales tax on equipment and building materials, and the company would be exempt from property and corporate taxes. The state would also spend money to get Saturn here. Wherever it locates, the state would buy the land and improve it. It would build a high-tech center at the U and a job training center at the site. It would pick up relocation expenses and would subsidize the mortgages of Saturn's top 100 executives. The private sector has also pitched in. It has donated a $100 million electric and steam plant. Still unknown, however, are $271 million more in private sector initiatives. Those range from real estate help to hotel and travel expenses. It's a big, attractive deal, and the governor said today it is not a one-company deal.
Also could affect any major job-producing industry. Our program includes tax reductions, economic opportunity zones, incentives for jobs in distressed counties, and other features.
And Pat and Don, the governor also said this afternoon, GM has made no decision on where to locate yet, that it will wait until mid-May before it makes that decision. And the governor said that Minnesota is still in the running, along with other states. As I said, it's a big, ambitious proposal. Total price tag about $1.3 billion.
Ooh, all right. Thanks, Pat. Governor Perpich also signed a bill today abolishing the board that oversees the state's largest public employees pension fund. The bill replaces the 15-member board of the trustees of the Public Employee Retirement Association, PARA, with a new panel consisting of the state auditor and 8 other people. The PARA board came under fire for hiring Union President John Allers as interim director. Allers, who has been under suspension, recently resigned.
And a Minnesota House committee today voted to abolish the political campaign checkoff on state income tax forms and to replace it with a checkoff for a child abuse prevention fund. During 4 hours of debate, House Democrats called the bill a, quote, cynical attempt to play politics with the child abuse issue. They accused Republicans of trying to abolish public campaign funding because the Democrats rely on that funding more than the Republicans. The IR said, though, that they were sincere in supporting a checkoff to generate millions of dollars needed for child abuse programs.
Meanwhile, the Democratic-controlled state Senate has defeated an attempt by Republicans to have the full Senate debate the controversial resolution which sets limits on state spending. A similar budget plan has already passed the GOP-controlled House. Senate Republicans argued the measure faces certain death in an unfriendly committee there. They said their attempt to bypass the committee and bring it to the floor would let Minnesotans know the legislature is serious about lowering the cost of government in this state. And so goes the battle between the two sides.
There's a genuine human need and desire among Minnesotans to have some assurance of fiscal and tax control.
early in the evening and then started to warm up late last night. Lows across the country show some of that mild air that's invaded the upper Midwest with lows in the 30s.
They got a brand new Frigidaire.
Isn't she a beauty, girl?
It's got everything that Mrs. Fortuna and the 4 Fortuna daughters always wanted. And Mr. Fortuna knows it's still hard to find a refrigerator that'll outwork or outlast a Frigidaire. So what happened to their old Frigidaire?
Ain't she a beauty, girls?
Frigidaire appliances. Here today, here tomorrow.
Hey, even when your dad's out of town on a business trip, he still needs you. So if you want to take good care of him, tell him to get Sprint. Tell him he doesn't have to pay extra for credit card calls and collect calls. He'll get a Sprint travel code. Hey, that'll save him as much money as he can save at home. And he can call you from airports and hotel rooms and stuff. But wait till he gets home to tell him about the puppy. Call Sprint. Find out about it.
Stop into First Federal today. Our low-rate home equity loans can make your money go further.
It's today.
Dayton's today. The issue is
It's today.
fashion, the hottest news,
Make it today.
home ideas, the latest trends,
Make it today.
great sales,
It's today.
value plus items, and then there's more.
Make it today. Or you won't wanna wait. It's today.
Dayton's today. Look for it in this weekend's paper. It's the best of everything at the best value. From Dayton's.
Tomorrow, controlled data will tell a, quote, significant number, unquote, of Twin Cities workers that their jobs are being eliminated. The company is refusing to disclose exactly how many workers are being affected. Some will be offered jobs in other parts of the corporation, but others will be laid off about a month from now. The move affects workers in Control Data's peripheral products division. It includes clerical and maintenance workers as well as some middle management personnel. A national panel of experts is trying to determine whether a significant health threat exists in northeastern Minnesota.
The group will review...
And appears Tom Ryder on sports and meteorologist Paul Douglas.
Good evening. Topping tonight's News 11, big changes at Control Data.
Specifically, a new round of layoffs at the corporate giant.
Tomorrow, hundreds and maybe even thousands of pink slips will be handed out to Control Data employees. Bernie Grace reports.
Control Data officials refused to talk on camera about the new round of layoffs, but a company spokesman did confirm tomorrow they'll start sending out layoff notices. Dick Reed says this time around the hardest hit plants will be the magnetic peripherals plants. While production workers will not be affected, indirect employees will be. Reed says clerks, secretaries, and maintenance workers will be among the employees getting notices. And Reed says the hardest hit plants in tomorrow's layoffs will be facilities in Bloomington, Edina, Eden Prairie, and Burnsville. Reed says in the weeks ahead, the reductions in the company's workforce will extend to other plants. Company officials say the layoffs are necessary because demand for products has softened rapidly, and prices have declined rapidly because of competition. Control Data employs some 54,000 people worldwide, and in Minnesota, the number of workers totals some 18,000. In just the last 6 months, Control Data has reduced its workforce by some 2,200. That as a result of attrition and layoffs. Company officials will not say how many employees this latest round of layoffs affects, but earlier this year, when News 11 reported massive layoffs were coming, we reported the number of layoffs could eventually total some 5,000 workers. Company officials say some laid-off employees will be given a chance to shift over to other jobs within Control Data, but that number is expected to be relatively small compared to the overall number of layoffs. In Eden Prairie, Bernie Grace, News 11.
Sources tell News 11's investigative team that Control Data's financial crisis is tied to its massive diversification away from computers. In the past 10 years, the company has invested in ventures ranging from commercial credit to social programs, education, and even agriculture. And last year, Control Data's small business operation lost $100 million. The diversification into unprofitable outside ventures has dried up vital research and development money needed to keep pace with the fast-changing computer industry. And sources within the company say Control Data is simply no longer competitive with many of its computer lines.
For Hormel workers.
But today, the Bloomington-based data processing company announced a significant but unspecified number of layoffs beginning as early as tomorrow. The spokesman said the reductions have been speeded up, but will be managed by attrition and restructuring as well. Control Data's financial performance has been dismal. After 1983 profits of $161 million, that figure dropped last year to a net $32 million. One Wall Street brokerage firm reached today has advised customers not to buy CDC's stock and to get rid of it if they have it.
But the company is indeed
cash-starved at this point, and it's going to have to do something. Quite frankly, it's unclear to me how much money they can throw at some of the troubled computer businesses to effect a turnaround.
Fram also questions why Control Data has reportedly offered a stock plan to some 250 executives and managers, which would pay off handsomely should Control Data be bought by another company.
If a company gets bought, the management conceivably could all become nearly millionaires. Control Data, which has traditionally rebuffed the notion of selling out or getting taken over, now are giving managers almost an incentive to seek being bought out.
But for those workers not in management, Control Data's magnetic peripherals company is in for the biggest cuts, and company officials concede those employees who cannot be absorbed into other divisions will likely be out of a job. Tom Garrison, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
The Hormel
It's the best way to bring unity, and we would go along with that.
And to ensure equity on the board in the future, parents presented a petition of 1,700 names calling for a vote on changing the district into 6 wards.
I think that that's a very dangerous proposal, potentially, for education, because it's going to force board members to have their allegiance to a certain area of the school district or a certain turf that they must protect.
The board will make a final decision on the fate of Kellogg High in 2 weeks. A panel of national experts is trying to determine whether a significant health risk exists on Minnesota's Iron Range. The controversy centers around recent x-rays, which indicated that 1/3 of the patients may have suffered lung abnormalities. The group began a 2-day meeting today by saying those findings were premature. Caroline Lowe reports.
Lung x-ray. If it does, it will come up with recommendations on what should be done next. Caroline Lowe, WCCO Television News at the State Health Department.
The search for the source of salmonella poisoning in 5 Midwestern states continues tonight as the number of victims continues to grow. At last count, nearly 3,000 people had contracted the illness after drinking contaminated 2% milk. The milk was sold by the Jewel supermarket chain and processed by Hill Farm Dairy. A hotline has been set up, and it's feared the final number of victims may reach 10,000. Even disposing of the milk has become a problem now. Grocery stores who dumped it down sewers were told today that's illegal. In just a moment, Twin Cities hospitals are searching for health care, and in some Twin City hospitals, they are in short supply. Now, that's quite a change from this past June. Back then, hospital administrators said a nurses' strike and new regulations may mean that some nurses would not have jobs when the strike ended. Debbie Ely reports.
6,000 Twin Cities registered nurses walked the picket line last summer. By the first of the year, however, all but a handful were back on their jobs. But of those who have gone back, not all have stayed.
There have been a number of nurses who have resigned and sought occupations other places. They're working for the health maintenance organizations. They're working in home care agencies. Many of them stayed in nursing, but they're working somewhere else.
It's not known how many nurses have left hospital jobs, but a look through the Sunday job ads shows hospitals are trying to hire replacements. Even temporary agencies report a shortage of nurses willing to work in hospitals.
News 11 hour. We'll have the latest on the search in Mexico for Minnesota native John Walker. News is not very good.
And the news for thousands of Control Data employees in the Twin Cities is spinning around word of layoffs. Also, the Catholic Archbishop of
This
the
news
Twin
at 5, the IRS may have acted illegally when it raided so-called warehouse banks, 2 of them in Minnesota. Minnesota now among those states affected by a salmonella.
car and drive away from a Guadalajara restaurant. We have also learned now that the U.S. Embassy here is trying to pressure...
Confidential sources tell News 11 that this round of layoffs will involve between 1,000 and 2,000 Control Data employees. But company officials say they won't have an exact figure until reassignments are completed. Our sources say that total forced reductions by the end of the year could reach some 10,000, half of those in Minnesota. The I-Team has learned that 2 more subsidiaries of Control Data will be put up for sale: Ticketron, a national entertainment ticket ordering service, and Arbitron, an audience rating and measurement service. Company spokesman, however, insists there are no plans for those sales at this time. Meantime, there has reportedly been no serious interest in the purchase of Commercial Credit, a financial services subsidiary which our sources tell us the company has been desperately trying to sell. We've also been told by sources close to the company that towards the end of the first quarter of this year, Control Data's revenue picture showed a loss of 30 cents a share. Company officials had reportedly planned on a profit of 33 cents. All of this paints a bleak financial picture of critical proportions. Only recently, officials reportedly were worried about a takeover. Now, according to our sources, even would-be purchasers of the company are keeping their distance because of Control Data's financial crisis. John Bachman, News 11.
CDC's first home was in an old paper warehouse on the fringes of the Minneapolis Loop. Led by William Norris, a small group of men incorporated their computer company on July 8, 1957, and sold stock for $1 a share. A couple of years later, the firm had military contracts for large computers, and the stock was worth more than $16 a share. By the early 60s, CDC was an international corporation. Almost from the beginning, Chairman Norris wanted his company to serve society. He called it an investment.
It takes longer to make a profit from addressing social needs. However, in return for patience, more stable, enduring, and profitable markets can be gained.
Responding to racial rioting in 1967, Norris built a new plant in the ravaged Minneapolis neighborhood. He eventually built 9 inner-city plants and started sensitivity training for employees. Norris's vision seemed to be lined with gold, for by 1968, CDC stock was worth $140 a share, and initial investors were becoming wealthy. The dream of using CDC to serve society led to new ventures in the 60s and 70s. Many of these businesses had nothing to do with computers, and in recent years, the expansions have proved largely unprofitable. Today, the company remains Minnesota's 3rd largest corporation, but the value of its stock has plunged to only about $30 a share, and the once prosperous corporation pledged to serving society is now struggling for its own survival. Bob Clark, News 11.
And Control Data's stock value was down again today. It closed at 29 7/8, down 1/4 point.
And this was a day of anxiety for many Control Data workers, worried they might be the ones getting the pink slips. News 11's Bernie Grace was at the plant gates this morning.
Many Control Data employees arriving at work today were on edge, wondering if they would have a job by the end of the day.
There seems to be a little bit of tension of, a lot of people don't have a lot of work to do right now, and, those people have a lot of tension, yeah.
Russ McDonald says workers have been offered time off without pay.
To take time off for 1 to 12 months, go back to school, whatever they want to do.
Have many people been taking that offer?
They've been thinking about it.
Not really. Other workers seem to be taking the layoff news in stride.
Well, if it happens, it happens.
Well, these are uncertain times for everyone in our industry, and, the Japanese are competing, and we're doing our best to meet that competition, but nobody knows what the future holds for us.
Control Data officials confirmed just today that starting today, they would be notifying many workers they're being laid off. The layoffs come at the magnetic peripherals plants. There are 11 such plants in the Twin Cities area. Among the plants where layoffs were expected to be highest were the 2 Bloomington peripherals plants, one in Eden Prairie, another in Edina. Production workers, according to company officials, will not be laid off, but many secretaries, clerks, and maintenance people have gotten notices. But some employees expecting the layoffs already did something about it.
I quit before they laid me off. I'm in data entry, and they're closing our department down, so.
Company officials were not saying how many workers were getting notices today, but from all indications, it's a sizable number. In Bloomington, Bernie Grace, News 11.
And as Bernie just alluded, exactly how many employees will get the axe is still not known, although published reports indicate it may be well over 2,000. And what will those employees face once they get the word? Kevin McDowell checked into that.
Behind these walls at CDC headquarters, there were some tough decisions being made today. Who stays and who goes? For those who go, the company has already decided what they'll be getting. First, they'll get a week's severance pay for every year of service, 30 days' notice. They can continue to participate in the company's health plan at their own expense, and those vested in the retirement plan will receive that investment with interest. Also, the company asked employees with questions to call the Employee Advisory Resource Hotline at 853-6400. Now, once they are out of a job, the workers will be heading for the unemployment line. You can apply by going to any local office of the Department of Economic Security. The state may also be able to help with its job service program.
The maximum benefit amount currently is $198 a week, and
essentially you can collect up to 50% of the wage that you were earning while you were employed for a period of up to 26 weeks.
State unemployment officials say it's been kind of a tough year for layoffs in the Twin Cities. First, there was Westinghouse, which laid off 650 workers. Then American Hoist, which laid off 650. And now Control Data. At Control Data's headquarters in Bloomington, Kevin McDowell, News 11.
The computer industry is not in trouble everywhere. As a matter of fact, the picture is quite rosy for Control Data's competition, IBM. Alan Costantini has that story.
IBM faced the same sluggish market for computer orders that Control Data did. The result, IBM's first quarter earnings are down 18% from a year ago. And yet, IBM is not talking to its employees about early retirement, nor are thousands of layoffs looming. The big plant in Rochester is buzzing with a high-tech activity of 7,400 workers. This is a 5362 computer under construction. This is the newest product being made here at the Rochester plant. It's part of a successful product mix that has resulted in the hiring of 600 new workers here in the last year. This powerful small computer and its two bigger brothers, the System 36 and the System 38, are expected to push IBM's earnings back into the growth column in the second half of the year. This is good news for the state economy, since the highly thought of IBM products are made by Minnesotans. That includes a new, smaller version of the hard disk file, which the Rochester plant will supply for the new PCAT computer. Market analysts say comparing IBM and CD is like comparing apples and oranges these days. Unlike the highly diversified Control Data, IBM focuses on and is dominant in its own field of expertise. IBM continues to concentrate on new product research, and a large part of its Rochester facility is considered a laboratory for product development. Wall Street is so convinced of IBM's stability that even though its earnings dropped, IBM stock climbed. It's good news for Minnesotans who depend on the company for their jobs. Alan Costantini, News 11, Rochester.
So to wrap up the situation at Control Data tonight, there are a lot of anxious employees, but so far, as we can tell, very few have officially been laid off. However, those layoffs are expected to begin during the early part of next week. And to bring you up to date on the weather situation, we've just received word that a severe storm warning is in effect.
Shower and bath gel with a free bonus pack is only $5.99 in Snyder's birthday.
North Dakota and then south all the way through Oklahoma and Kansas. Now those showers and thunderstorms will be moving in on us. We have a good chance of that kind of activity developing today. Some of them could become heavy because tonight the showers and thunderstorms are likely. Temperatures today mid-60s to low 70s, and tonight will drop into the upper 40s. So above normal temperatures and showers and thunderstorms moving in. Much needed rain. Wendy?
Don't mind the rain at all. Well, if you're a fan of the Fauché Tower in downtown Minneapolis, take note. The tower's 31st floor observation deck will be reopened today. Now, this is the only deck open to the public in downtown Minneapolis. Did you know that, Frank?
I didn't. And if you like the styles of the Roaring 20s, you might want to drop by the Landmark Center tonight. They'll be having a benefit party, speakeasy and all. That sounds like a lot of fun.
But this is my favorite one. The people over at the Tonka Company have...
This is a big event now. I understand that a lot of people from Europe and all over the United States are coming for this board. What will it do in effect, and how did you get it?
Well, the way we got it is just kind of a coup. We've been talking to people for a year and a half about coming in and helping us put together something like this, because it's recognized throughout the industry that there's something going on in Minnesota. And I think that now people are very receptive to the notion of coming here and meeting our people, seeing what they do, and exchanging ideas, and encouraging a lot more production out of this area.
Do you think the fact that Purple Rain was successful had anything to do with that?
Oh, sure. It had a lot to do with it. Every time you saw anyone on national television for a couple of months, they were talking about Prince in Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Sound, and there are a lot of hot comics out of this area. There are national renowned advertising agencies, and we're an up-and-coming area in production, and always have been strong in commercial and in industrials and educational.
It'll be interesting to see what happens as a result of that. But in the meantime, now you have a big event going on this weekend. Tell us about that.
We have a big event going on this weekend. It's a benefit for the Film Board, sponsored by the Orion Room and Cleo's Nightclub. And it's going to be an evening full of a lot of awfully good short films by commercial and independent filmmakers in Minnesota. And it's meant to be a salute to them as well. There is an awful lot of excellent work done out of this area, and not very many people get a chance to see it. And we want to make sure they do.
They have a chance on Saturday night, and we hope it goes well for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Buffy. We're going to be back to wrap up the Friday Five in just a moment. Right now, 27 minutes after 5 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Dave Moore has the night off. Reviews are mixed on Governor Rudy Perpich's Saturn incentive plant announced yesterday, but some local businesses are complaining that this, the largest state transaction ever negotiated with a private company, does not do much for companies in shaky financial shape, which are already here in Minnesota. Pat Kessler has more.
There's no question that landing the Saturn plant in Minnesota would be a plus for the state economy. But critics bring up a nagging question. At what price?
It raises a very serious question of what we're doing to help existing industries, including the Minnesota farmer, while we're trying to lure a business from out of state that, by the way, is an enormously profitable business.
The Saturn proposal includes $800 million in tax breaks and another $96 million in state spending. It's the kind of package any business would love to have. But the state's largest industry lobby thinks the same attention should be paid to businesses already here.
Just make sure that when you're looking at bringing new businesses in, you're also concerned with keeping us here, making sure we're competitive, and business people will be happy.
Education Association are both looking for grassroots support of their views on the open enrollment education proposal. The governor toured the state holding airport news conferences and
Data were told today that today would be their last day of work. Yesterday, Control Data acknowledged it was making a significant reduction in its workforce, and today many of those employees got their final notices and are presently out of work. Now, Control Data says that because of disappointing computer sales, it's had to make those drastic cutbacks. It also says that many of the laid-off workers will be reassigned or offered jobs elsewhere. There are some, however, who were given no notice at all, only a slip of paper telling them that their jobs no longer exist.
Gave me 5 minutes, says you gotta go. Pack your coffee cup and go.
Give you any chance to transfer, take another job anywhere?
No, nothing.
Control Data says that it has cut its worldwide workforce by more than 2,000 since September. Dennis?
Well, Control Data today refused comment on the $1.3 billion offer.
1983, as the effects of the recession lingered, Control Data was still earning $1 per share of stock every 3 months. But last year, the corporation fared worse, even as the economy was improving. Control Data executives hoped to return to 1983 profit levels this year. But from January to March, some analysts expect the company will post another loss. The result could be seen on a personal level outside Control Data's plant on Computer Avenue in Bloomington a few hours ago. John Bowman worked for 9 months as a fill-in electrical maintenance worker.
1:45, they called in the 3 supplementals into the office and just laid us off.
What did they say to you?
They just said that, you know, times are tough and sorry they had to do it, but that was it.
Other employees say they've heard talk of substantial layoffs at a plant in Eden Prairie come Monday. The company won't say how many people will lose their jobs. The layoffs are among non-production workers in a division making data storage equipment, computer disk drives. At one time, Control Data sold more drives for IBM machines than IBM did. But IBM has begun aggressive selling of its own. Overseas companies are also stepping up disk drive shipments.
They're facing competition that they didn't face 3 or 4 years ago. The Germans, the Japanese are much more active in the markets, and so what little there is being divided up among more firms.
Some market analysts believe Control Data will soon return to profitability as long as it keeps paring down its expenses, including its labor costs, which will include more layoffs. Pat?
All right, thank you, Alan. Walgreens at 9th and Nichols.
Control Data were confirmed by the computer company, and today workers learned which of them would be asked to leave. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dennis Bound. Stan Turner has the night off.
And let's start the update tonight with the problems at Control Data. Pink slips delivered today to a number of its employees, including one man who claims he got no advance notice at all. And part of the problem, as Frank Mann reports, is that the company suffered low first-quarter earnings because of sagging computer sales.
For many Control Data employees, it was the worst possible news. This morning, many of them received notices that today would be their last day at work.
Gave me 5 minutes, says you gotta go. Pack your coffee cup and go.
Give you any chance to transfer, take another job anywhere?
No, nothing.
The company has declined to say exactly how many are facing layoffs. It said that a significant number would be losing their jobs. Some would be rehired or reassigned. Others, like this man, would just remain out of work.
I was always under the impression that I was working for a good place until, you know, they throw this at me like this. You know, no couple weeks warning or anything, just the last minute. Hey, I mean, that's...
No notice at all? No severance pay?
No severance pay, no.
The layoffs are in the company's peripheral products division, people who are involved in making parts for computer systems. Disappointing computer sales are the chief reason for the layoffs. Officials also say that the first quarter earnings were much lower than once hoped. Today, control data stock fell another 25 cents. Yesterday, it closed at $30.12 a share, 87 cents less than the day before. Control Data says it has no plans to close any of its plants. It is in the middle of negotiating a sale of its Bemidji plant up north. Whether that will mean additional layoffs really depends on who the purchaser of that plant turns out to be. Right now, the company isn't willing to talk about any potential buyers. Frank Mann, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
A big sigh of
Will control data plants early next week.
And tonight, confidential sources tell News 11 that this round of layoffs is just the beginning of things to come. We've learned that between 1,000 and 2,000 control data employees will be laid off during this current round, but the total number of layoffs could reach 10,000 by the end of the year, with half of those coming in Minnesota. We've also learned that 2 more subsidiaries of control data will be put up for sale: Ticketron, a national entertainment ticket ordering service, and Arbitron, an audience rating and measurement service. But the company tonight insists there are no plans like that in the works.
And News 11 has learned that a major farm equipment dealer in
tonight on the impending report. There is indeed a war for survival going on. These are the words of a control data executive. And today, the latest casualties of that war, people whose jobs did not survive.
Noon, we had heard around 2 o'clock something was going to happen, and our department was going to be affected. And at 1:45, they called in the 3 supplementals into the office and just laid us off.
What did they say to you?
They just said that, you know, times are tough and sorry they had to do it, but that was it.
When you get an organization that's big and that's capital intensive, you can't lay off the machines, you can't lay off the equipment that produces equipment. You've really only got one way to cut back, and that's the people that work for you.
Workers expect another round of cuts in the workforce on Monday. The company says more layoffs, most in the Twin Cities, are likely, though executives say the exact number is still under review. The current round of cuts comes in the division that makes disk drives, devices to store computer data. The company says there is less demand for its older products, more competition to build the newer. Control Data employs 18,000 people in the Twin Cities. The exact number laid off today was not released. Reviews are mixed on Governor Rudy Perkich's package of incentives to lure General Motors' Saturn plant in Minnesota.
Sport that looks easier than it is. Tennis, number 1. You said golf. We need 35 points. Survey said 17. Something a rich man might own. Expensive car was number 1. You said a boat. If it's worth 18 points, you get $10,000. Survey said...
Hi, I'm 140 years old, but I don't look a day over 50. The reason? I listen to music. I get my music from the Wax Museum and Great American Music. The Firm, featuring Jimmy Page, on sale now, just $6.99. Or get No Jacket Required from Phil Collins, on sale now.
We are records and tapes and cabaret, the Wax Museum and Great American Music.
Sales on now.
Join the gang at WKRP, weekday afternoons at 4:30.
I don't know, Les. What do women want?
Tupperware. Weekday afternoons at 4:30 on TV 11.
TV 11, let's all be there.
27 million Americans are functionally illiterate. Please volunteer your help by calling this number.
Oh, no. I was sure this was the way. Maybe that way. No? I think I'm lost. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, so we sometimes feel lost, frightened, alone. But there is a place to turn for support and guidance. Turn to your house of worship and find your way with God.
Limousine, I told you, and brown was the masculine color. They said red and blue, otherwise sensational. Augustine's came, took us for $10,534. Minneapolis, we're proud of you. We'll see you here on the field. Bye-bye.
Some departing contestants receive a gift certificate for Jules Jurgensen elegantly styled ladies sports analog watch with 6 diamonds and mesh bracelet, or a gents sports analog day date with matching bracelet, furnished by Jules Jurgensen. A spice rack from McCormick Schilling, who brings you the finest in spices and seasoning mixes, including bag and season for both conventional and microwave ovens. Your house of flavor, McCormick Schilling. A 7-piece wine set and decanter from Riuniti, America's best loved imported wine. Red, white, rosé, and gold. Have you tried Riuniti on ice? It's so nice. Only Q-Tex Remover has a moisture guard to protect nails from drying and breaking. No wonder it's America's #1 remover. Rice-A-Roni, the big flavor side dish that's so quick, so easy. The one you saute and simmer to flavor perfection. Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat. Mazola has a new taste that's fresh, light, and it's still cholesterol-free. So discover the untoppable new taste of Mazola. This is Gene Wood speaking for Family Feud. A Mark Goodson television production.
Thinking you're buying a new bed or mattress? Then visit ComforRest Adjustable Beds. ComforRest just moved to Columbia Heights. During grand opening, you may purchase your new bed at just a fraction of the regular price. 1/3 of your life is spent in bed. Let ComforRest make the most of it. Adjustable beds come in all sizes. And at ComforRest, you can rent with an option to buy. ComforRest Adjustable Beds, 5005 University Avenue Northeast, or call now at 572-8361. 572-8361.
I never
sing along with Name That Tune.
Every time I saw your Labels ring, are you listening in the glen? So it's listen, working in the winter wonderland.
Name That Tune. Weekdays at 3 on TV 11.
Physical fitness is for everyone, and those of you with disabilities often do the most with your abilities.
And you're an inspiration for the rest of us. My able, disabled veteran friends are tough competition.
Exercise makes you feel better, and your body responds.
The VA is committed to assisting our veterans to be physically fit. You supply the courage.
Hello, I'm Romeo Alteco, concert master of the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. Please join the orchestra Tuesday, May 14th at the New Ordway Theater for a multiple sclerosis benefit. Pinker Zuckerman will conduct, and Emmanuel Axe, one of the world's great pianists, will be the guest artist. Please help fight MS. For ticket information, call the MS Society at 870-1500.
The following is a rebroadcast of the 10 p.m. edition of News 11.
From the Twin Cities Action Center, News 11, your new choice for news. With Paul Majors, Diana Pierce, Tom Ryder on sports, and meteorologist Paul Douglas.
Good evening. News 11 has learned that a Minnesotan who disappeared in Mexico is now presumed dead.
John Walker has been missing since January 30th.
Walker's wife, Eve, has spent the last 3 months looking for him, and today she heard what she hoped not to hear. Marty Burns-Wolf has this satellite report from Mexico City.
Eve Walker's trip to Mexico City was to find out from officials at the U.S. Embassy just how much had been done on the investigation into her husband's disappearance. This afternoon, Eve learned that her husband John has allegedly been beaten and taken away by a Mexican drug dealer who is in jail here in Mexico City on a murder charge. Rafael Caro Quintero is in jail and charged with the February 7th kidnapping murder of U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency agent Enrique Camarena. News 11 has learned there was a statement made by eyewitnesses in Guadalajara who say that Quintero and his bodyguards thought John and his friend were drug enforcement agents. They allegedly beat John Walker and his companion, drove them away in a car from a Guadalajara restaurant. Neither man has been seen since. The investigation here will continue. Now officials will be looking for the bodies of the two Americans in Guadalajara. For John Walker's case, it appears as though it may be coming to an end. But for Eve Walker, who spent a year here with her husband in this country, the grief is just beginning. Marty Burns-Wolf, News 11 in Mexico City.
And tomorrow, our crew in Mexico City will try and get the document that confirms Walker's death.
The latest round of layoffs are underway at Control Data. Workers leaving their shifts at the area Control Data plants report only isolated layoffs today. But many workers are confused and frustrated about their future.
Yeah, I just got called down to the office and got my notice that they were going to let us go.
They said everything's okay, you know, we'll be back to work Monday. So they don't really say that much about it, though, you know, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think, you know, because we've heard so many rumors from everybody.
Unofficial reports indicate the heavy layoffs will hit local Control Data plants early next week.
And tonight, confidential sources tell News 11 that this round of layoffs is just the beginning of things to come. We've learned that between 1,000 and 2,000 Control Data employees will be laid off during this current round, but the total number of layoffs could reach 10,000 by the end of the year, with half of those coming in Minnesota. We've also learned that 2 more subsidiaries of Control Data will be put up for sale: Ticketron, a national entertainment ticket ordering service, and Arbitron, an audience rating and measurement service. But the company tonight insists there are no plans like that in the works.
And News 11 has learned that a major farm equipment dealer in southeastern Minnesota is going out of business. A spokesman for the Minnesota Farm Implement Company says he blamed the faltering farm economy on the failure of that business. The company will be liquidated at a 2-day auction on the company grounds beginning April 12th. Reaction to Governor Perpich's offer to lure the GM Saturn plant to Minnesota came in fast and furious today. At the Ford plant in St. Paul, the spokesman said these sort of tax breaks are truly amazing. But Perpich says if Minnesota wants the plant, then big concessions must be made.
The Archbishop of the Minneapolis-St. Paul Archdiocese is in jail tonight. Bishop John Roach entered the Ramsey County Detention Center this afternoon. He'll spend 2 days in jail for a DWI conviction. Roach was arrested February 21st in Chisago County with a blood alcohol content nearly twice the legal limit. And the man accused of a rape which the victim says never happened is back behind bars tonight. Gary Dotson returned to prison today after a judge refused to accept the word of Kathy Webb, the woman Dotson allegedly raped 6 years ago. But Dotson says he's not giving up. He'll appeal, and his mother has asked the Illinois governor for clemency.
And the Illinois Public Health Director is without a job tonight. Thomas Kirkpatrick was fired today by Illinois Governor James Thompson for taking a vacation during the Salmonella outbreak. The milk-borne disease has sickened nearly 3,000 people in 5 states.